invited, dear listener, to come along on a strange new journey, an adventure into an exciting realm of fantasy, science fiction, movies, comic books, role-playing games, and more as the nerdy photographer dives deep into the search for what makes him so nerdy. Join us for Nerd Quests.
Back and he was playing Pat Riley. That was awesome.
Another guy.
Oh, they have a Pat Riley?
Yeah, Adrian Brody.
Yeah,
and
you'll
I,
get there.
and
Spoilers, sorry.
And
yes,
I didn't realize how, like, when I first heard that, I was like, really? Adrian Brody? But as it went along and he shaves, like, you get the a shot of him with, like, the mustache shaved off. And I was like, wow, they actually do.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I can't see that in my head.
Like, it starts out, he's got like the big porn stash.
Yeah.
And then he shaves it off, like where you see a scene where it's shaved off or whatever, and you're looking at him going, wow, Adrian Brody does look like Pat Riley. It's a little creepy.
But now it's, we're so used to just slicked back gray Pat Riley.
Slick back, yeah. That's what I was used to. I forgot what he looked like when he was younger.
And I've only seen him smile like 3 times. 2006, 2012, and 2013.
Right.
Hopefully he doesn't smile anymore.
Fuck you. I hope he smiles real big this year. That game's starting now.
Yeah, it's about to start at 6:40 my time.
I have the remote here. I probably won't turn it on until halftime, though.
I mean, that's all. You don't need to watch it until halftime, anyways.
No, and I actually prefer for the Heat to be down at the half. They do better if they're down at the half. Like if the Heat do good in the third quarter, we're probably going to win.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
but
it's been a long time since I've watched basketball, but everybody's got their thing. Like the same thing with.
I should go change jerseys. Actually, this isn't my good luck jersey. All right, I'll give you this game, Matt. But next week, I'm putting my good luck jersey back on.
I think we can just roll into this from here. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Nerd Quests. This is the Star Wars edition of Nerd Quests. I am here with Lauren and Matt from Hops Geek News. I don't know. I don't know. I every time I try to pronounce it, I'm like Hops Geeks News. Hops Geek. Hops Geek.
Little tongue twister.
Hops Geek News.
It is.
I don't know. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
To see how sober everybody is.
So I'm going to run right into this. I have always loved Star Wars, and we were talking about before we started here, like before you came on, Lauren. Matt was saying he can talk about Star Wars all the time, and I probably can too. I have a deep and abiding love for the original trilogy. It's not that I don't think there are things wrong with it, but I feel like it's the more solid story of all, like of our 3 trilogies. I don't know. Okay, and I know you're recording a lot of stuff. You're recording. This is your Star Wars month. So, what are your thoughts on the various, like, the strengths of the 3 trilogies? How do you rank things?
Oh boy. Well, it's no secret that I don't like the sequel trilogies very much. I'll be honest there. That's not really a surprise. But my favorite all-time Star Wars film is Revenge of the Sith. Like that, I'm a diehard Revenge of the Sith fan. However, you make a really good point when you say that the original trilogy is probably the best, most well put together, strung together series of Star Wars. And that makes a lot of sense because when you go back and rewatch A New Hope, Empire, Jedi, it's like, oh, these are 3 really good movies. They're great. When we get to the prequels, it's like a lot of people don't like The Phantom Menace. There's a lot of issues with Attack of Clones. I like Attack of the Clones. I understand there's issues with it. And then you have Revenge of the Sith, which is loved. The sequel trilogy, well, Force Awakens, everyone, that kind of speaks for itself, the sequel trilogy, right?
I mean, Lauren, I don't know if you want to weigh in here on these thoughts.
Well, Matt and I are both very different because, like, he grew up in love with Star Wars. So, I've made the joke many times on our podcast, nobody hates Star Wars like diehard Star Wars fans. They will rip it to shreds. I didn't get into it until I was older, and I recently did a full rewatch, and this time I did the full rewatch in chronological order, and I incorporated the cartoons. And so in doing that, I incorporated Clone Wars and Rebels. I have such a newfound appreciation for those movies. And I will say I definitely love the sequel trilogy the least because I feel like it didn't move me. But like once I rewatched the prequels and mixed in Clone Wars, um episode 3 hit very different. And because before I was like, Anakin doesn't have great character development, he's clearly not mentally stable. I don't understand what happened. Why did Padme die like that? Like, it didn't make sense to me as a mother why you would die of a broken heart after
Palpatine
seeing
took a
your
life force,
newborns.
man.
He sucked it out of
But
her.
once I
That's how
learned
he
that,
does that. He does that stuff.
but to the casual Star Wars fan watching that movie, it didn't make sense. You needed more. You needed to know more. You needed more context.
And honestly, I would say that's the problem with the prequel trilogy. Is there's like, and here's the thing, I am not a huge fan of the prequels because this is what I think is the problem with both the prequels and the sequel trilogies is with storytelling is that the first trilogy, 4, 5, 6, you start in the middle of what's going on.
Mhm.
Like it's not starting at the beginning of the rebellion. We're already
Right.
well into the rebellion. Things are already happening. And it's just like, and that's a great storytelling technique. You start in the middle of the scene. You don't like start with the beginning of things. And like that's what I find with both the prequel and the sequel trilogies is you sort of start at the beginning of this new thing that's happening. And we go through it. And I felt like the prequels are, I don't know, in some ways better than the sequel trilogy because if it had started with the Clone Wars TV show, the cartoon, and I felt, and with some changes to Anakin's character, I feel like Anakin should have been like, you bring Anakin in not as a child, but Anakin should have been like teenager. He should have been like Hayden Christensen's age when they find him, and he's the Han Solo character of that trilogy. Like he's the dashing, adventurer. He's already a great pilot because it just felt like in the prequel when you make him a child at the beginning, you're sort of building. There's got to be so much more that happens after like Phantom Menace to make what Obi-Wan says in A New Hope make sense. And I feel like you needed Clone Wars, the TV show, to make sense of their relationship. Like otherwise, in these two movies, in Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, you don't really get enough of that relationship. And that stuff came. And correct me if I'm wrong. Those all came after the movies were out, right? Or did Clone Wars start after Attack of the Clones? I can't remember chronologically if that.
No, so Clone Wars, the movie,
the TV show I'm talking about, did it come after?
Oh, the TV. Well, yeah, I was saying like, the Clone Wars TV show started after the Clone Wars the movie because the Clone Wars the movie kicked it off with the Battle of Geonosis, and then that's where we kind of pick up at. And I definitely agree that they should have started the Phantom Menace should have started with Anakin, maybe already as a Jedi, possibly, to really get that. They should have started in the Clone Wars, like the beginning of
the Clone Wars should have been happening at that point. Like I feel like they should have been happening, and maybe he's joined up as a pilot, and then Obi-Wan finds him and is like, "Hey, this kid is obviously using the Force. You got to do something here," and start training him. And that should have been the first movie. Second movie could have been Revenge of the Sith, and the third movie could have been more of like the breakup of the Jedi. You could have stretched that out more. I feel like it just happened so quickly in the movie. Like there could have been more going on, and you could have explained more of what happens with Padme and why he doesn't know where his kids are, because at that point,
or know that they exist,
right? Because there needs to be a better explanation for that. Like, because first of all, you hiding this kid, you gave him his name. Like his name ain't. I know his name ain't
that
Lars.
Never made sense.
It is funny because like he obviously knew that she was pregnant, and so like
right.
The
but
Vader
I think that also at her funeral, I think they intentionally. I mean, obviously, most women walk out of the hospital still looking pregnant, but she barely looked pregnant, 9 months pregnant with twins. And so at her funeral, she still has a visible belly.
That's
So
true.
I think they did that on purpose. But I will say George Lucas did come out and say he kind of regretted having him be a little kid, but I think that they really did that because they wanted you to empathize with this character that ends up slaughtering younglings and, destroying Alderaan and just being a terrible person. And they really wanted you to see his innocence as a child. But I that would have made a lot of more sense, especially because I do not like that he's a child with Padme. I don't like that at all.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
But
if he was
like
14, he was 9. All right, they're not
supposedly,
that crazy. Come
but
on.
that's yeah. That just that brings me to thoughts about. There's another the Time Traveler's Wife on Hulu right now. Like I had
Oh
to,
yeah,
I had
yeah.
to stop it after the first episode because I was like, this is just messed up.
Getting a little weird.
It's really
oh,
weird.
is it that they do like the age thing?
Well, she first she first meets him, and he's in his like 40s or something, and she's a child, and he's like telling her
Ugh.
how they're going to get married someday. Like,
Bro, chill.
No,
like
yeah.
that is not cool. No way that's happening.
Little weird
Yeah.
there, my guy.
Yeah, my
But
guy, you need
they
to pump the
coulda
brakes,
done
my guy.
Right. They could have done flashbacks though to him as a child. So
Right.
you get glimpses of that innocence and you see that this is a very advanced child, a very intelligent child, someone who's showing signs of the force and whatnot. But yeah, we get. But I think that Filoni and Favreau, I think they're fixing it. I think they're filling the holes in.
I think they're
And
doing really good job. Like,
Oh
sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going.
I was just gonna say, when I did my rewatch, I took episode 3 and the last few episodes of the last season of Clone Wars, and I literally would watch like 40 minutes, pause it, and then watch these episodes. So everything was happening together, and like Order 66 made more sense, and everything made so much more sense, and it was so much more impactful than just watching episode 3 by itself.
Right. I think that's what could have worked better from a filmmaking perspective, because all that stuff that feels like it's corrective in a way.
Yeah.
It's like it's
Yeah,
done
I
after
mean,
the
it
fact,
is,
and they're
definitely.
right. It's like it's done after the fact, and Filoni is just like he is a deep lore nerd, and is. I love Rebels. I think Rebels is great.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
And I think that if you had started with, a movie that was the Clone Wars, and that you'd done that a little bit differently, like as far as like how you spaced it out and chose the stories to tell in those films, and told them maybe a little bit with a bit more nuance than they were like when. And this is a problem because I think George Lucas has a problem when there's nobody else to tell him, hey, this.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't you
This
need
doesn't
to
make any
trim
sense,
a little
man.
bit. Like you need to cut this a little bit, like a little editing here, let the story, like a little nip and tuck on the story.
Script writing too.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, my wife gets tired of it. Like I always say, like if you've given me the script for like 3 hours, I can fix pretty much any script and like make it at least an enjoyable movie. And I have thoughts about the sequel trilogy in that regard. But yeah, I think that the way that you maybe solidify or make that prequel trilogy better is by starting in a different place entirely.
Well, definitely. So, I mean, we hear so much about the Clone Wars, or like the reference to it, right, from Obi-Wan. He's like, yeah, we fought in the Clone Wars. He mentions it. So why not give us, because they go straight from the start of the Clone Wars, and then episode
To the
3
end.
picks up at the very end of the Clone Wars. So it's
Yeah.
like it's I don't think it's so much as a course correction with Favreau and Filoni as much as it's like, well, then your brain is just going like, oh, there's so many stories you can tell in between this time period.
Right.
So maybe it's a little bit of both, in my opinion.
Well, I think that you even have that in the original trilogy. There is a lot of space between each episode.
There's movie. I mean, they jump time periods.
Right. There's a lot of
Right.
time, and that's fine. You can absolutely do that. I think the way that you could do that, my personal like vision of storytelling is those Clone Wars can go on for a long time, and they did. But it's like you do that as like the start of the first movie. We're already into it, and then the second movie is maybe we're getting towards the end, and the Sith are taking over. Like And then the third movie is more of the sort of a very close movie about like Obi-Wan, Yoda, Anakin, Palpatine, Padme. Like it really
Right.
rotates around those five characters and like really focus in on them because it's like, what are we gonna do? We got to get his kids away from him. Like that's like make it more of a Rogue One type of movie,
Yeah.
which I love. Like I think it's my favorite non trilogy movie. Like
Yeah.
make that last
by far, yeah, it
last
is without a
prequel movie
doubt.
more like that, like more grounded and like focused on like a small group of people.
Have they said when Ahsoka is going to take place, the Disney Plus show? Because I'm wondering if we will.
Not yet.
It's well, I
It's
have a
some
friend
of
who
that.
works on all of those shows and former
Whoa.
client. Yeah, he does the effects, and he just like they just started production.
Yeah, it just
last
started.
week.
So
Um,
you probably can't tell us, or if you can, cut it
he
out.
can't tell
So
us anything.
Well, I feel like my personal theory is it takes place around Mando, right? Because she's talking about finding Ezra,
Yeah.
and Thrawn, and
Yeah.
crew. So that it only makes.
So we think
sense
it's going to
that
be
that's the time
post
period.
episode 6 then.
Because what we're
Yes.
doing right now is we're filling in the gaps between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens.
Right.
But
So
we
that's
could
what we're
get
doing right now.
flashbacks. Like with
Yeah.
Boba, we got flashbacks.
I'm sure
I mean,
we'll
it
get
wasn't.
flashbacks.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
because
sure we'll
Anakin's
have
going to
some.
be in it. Hayden's going to be in it.
Yeah, and he's
Oh,
in.
Gonna
He's
cry
he's in
so
Obi-Wan.
hard. If
He's
I
gonna be in
see
Obi-Wan.
flashback live actions of Anakin and Ahsoka,
Mm.
and he calls her things like snips and stuff, oh, dude, I don't cry, but I will literally cry. Like, oh my god, I can't.
You
even
don't
imagine.
cry. Put on Endgame.
I haven't cried. My tears are broken, but Kenobi's gonna break them first and
man.
foremost.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take place between, like you said, it's in that space between Mando
Oh, yeah.
and Force Awakens, which leads me into sequel trilogy problems. I know that this is going to be controversial, probably. Maybe I don't know. We'll see how you guys react to this. My favorite movie of the sequel trilogy is Last Jedi.
It's
that,
not
Mom?
controversial
You
to
need
me. I don't have an issue with it. Honestly, I view all three movies kind of on the same playing field. I don't think I really preferred one over the other, nor did I loathe one more than the others. But I know that Matt feels different.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I think The Force Awakens, I know people are like, it's just a rehash of A New Hope. Okay.
It is.
They did that on purpose too.
I understand.
And
I feel like it did, but it did such a good job of capturing the spirit of Star Wars.
yes.
Okay.
But it's playing on your nostalgia. And that's
Mhm.
why it makes me very angry. And why, like I said, I love the original trilogy. It has problems. There are some things in there that, like,
Yeah.
you guys just posted that
But
meme
it
about.
started in the 70s. Take
Yeah.
it for what it is.
No, I'm not
yeah.
even talking about the originals, the first one. My issues with the storytelling and those, I think that Empire is probably the best film in those first three. New Hope is probably second, and Return of the Jedi is probably like the weakest of the three. My problems are with some of the storytelling in Jedi, and like the use of Ewoks and instead of Wookiees, and
oh man, they should have used Wookiees. It would have been way better.
and like there's some things there, but like there are issues with Last Jedi, like space princess, Leia, like somehow bringing herself back
Mary
into the
Poppins.
whatever. Like, yeah, I'm Mary Poppins, bitch. There are some issues there, but I think like the reason I say that is because it has the most original story of the three. Because Force Awakens is literally a rehash of New Hope,
Okay,
and the last
yes.
one is an exact rehash of Return of the
But
Jedi, where
I'm
you've
fine
got
with the original story. I am so fine with it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. Go
I
ahead.
really
You talk.
apologize.
Go ahead. It's fine.
I apologize. I
He gets passionate.
I'm very cool with original story, but I just felt like the original story they gave us was just like, I'm gonna go against what J.J. Abrams did, and I'm gonna go against what the first 6 movies set up, and then it was just basically a pissing contest because they didn't have a clear, concise. This is what our trilogy is, and
Right.
so that's what
That's the
suffers
problem.
from.
When there
That's
was
the
like
main problem.
rewrites regularly, that so somebody said like I've never seen so many rewrites on a movie that I was working on
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue. Is like with I think with mostly with the sequel trilogy is that there is nobody had any clear idea what they were gonna do, which is what makes me more angry about the fact that they just like threw away the expanded universe, like the books
That
and all that stuff,
yes,
all that stuff that was
yes.
there that they had that they could have drawn from and adapted, make it different so
Mhm.
that it's like people aren't going, well, I read the book and I already know what's going to happen. Like, make it a little different. That's fine, but you already have a framework to work from.
Foundation.
Well, you know what?
You
We're
have
just going to
so
throw
much.
all of that out and do something like you could have made so many different things from this. Like, and then it just like to like the payoffs were like we like okay Rise of Skywalker.
Oh
My
god.
wife and I were sitting in the theater and I looked at her and I said they tried to fan service everyone in this movie,
Yes.
everybody who wanted Rey and Ben to
To be
kiss
somebody. Oh,
and then also wanted him to die and wanted like all these things like we're gonna do everything we can to like
he
make
dies
all of these
twice in
moments
that
happen.
movie.
Well, like they you sit there and you go like, okay, they wrote. Like, it's like they were sitting in a meeting, in a pitch meeting, going like, okay, what are the fans gonna love? Oh, they're gonna love it if they get together. Well, if they get
What's
together,
Twitter saying
yes,
today?
exactly. And they just like
Only
writing
Spider-Man No Way Home can pull that off.
right.
Oh my
Like
god.
you can't do that. You can't get it all in there. And you're right. Spider-Man No Way Home is the only one that's pulled off all of the Twitter hype.
Or
That was
catering to us,
yeah,
yes, making us happy, yeah.
yeah, but
Oh
also
my
telling
god.
a fulfilling story in that
Right.
sense. Like
Yes.
they also in that film, and that was a very narrow like eye of the needle that they threaded with that film.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah.
It could have
And they
gone
opened more stuff up too.
right, and
Yeah.
it's that in that sense that is brilliant storytelling. Like that was
Yeah.
great, as opposed to you know Rise of Skywalker, where I was just like at the end, I was like, what, what? Like we're gonna do a our
Somehow Palpatine returned.
somehow
Well,
Palpatine
when
is
Lando
back.
showed up, I think that Lando showing up though was one of those supposed to be like woohoo moments.
I felt
That
no woohoo from any
The
of those.
only
it was
moment in that
fun.
movie that got me was like they're just people.
Okay.
That
My
moment
only
got me.
yeah.
I was just like, hmm, yeah.
I went woohoo when the credits rolled.
Like when the fleet of like they don't have a fleet, and I felt like what's his name? God, I can't remember. With Nail and I actor Richard D. Grant.
Oh yeah.
I felt like he was supposed to be Thrawn. Like that was my thought.
Mm.
Like when they cast him, I was like, oh, he's gonna play Thrawn. Like that's what this
I
character's
can't
gonna
believe they
be.
didn't bring Thrawn in.
And it should like, and I feel like that whole thing with Ahsoka, like when in Mando, when she says like, where's Thrawn? I'm like, oh, they finally realized that this was the character they should have made the bad in the sequel trilogy. Like
Yeah.
somebody, like we're
He-
trying
I
to
don't think
correct.
she's
Empire-
actually looking for
oh.
him though. I think she's genuinely looking for Ezra, which
Yeah,
I would
but
love to see
they're
a
one and the
grown-up
same.
Ezra. Like that I feel like would have been an amazing character to see in the sequels. But I think that Dave Filoni is their Kevin Feige, but Star Wars needs to relinquish control to him the way Marvel has done for Kevin Feige. Like he knows what he's doing. He can do this.
Yeah, but like the Mandalorian season 1 and 2, great. With and
I liked Boba.
I did not like Boba.
I didn't really care for Boba too much myself, to be honest with you. Like,
I felt like it was
I thought it
weak
was
storytelling. It was all over the place. You could have made it about his story with the Sand People. Great, that was a great possibility, but it felt like it just
it's not even that the story was contained. It's just
it went everywhere, and it didn't.
it
like,
But I
was.
feel like
it didn't
they're
know what it wanted to be.
Right.
But I
this
think they're
had no
these
identity.
early shows. I think they're building a foundation. They're trying to
Mm.
fix things and connect it all. And it's like you're not going to have this is the Boba Fett and Mando show. Like they still primarily did focus on Boba. We found out how he got out of the Sarlacc pit, and I really liked it. I thought it was great storytelling. And then the last episode, you got a ton of action, and I feel very differently about Rancors now than I did after
Yeah.
just seeing them in Return of the Jedi.
You know what?
So.
That's it. Yes, I agree with you there. You get a much better Rancor feelings. My problem with it is I just feel like it was lazy storytelling, and it's like, how can we get the Mandalorian in here to get some more?
We're
Mandalorian
gonna liven
story?
things up.
And I thought where's the we already know Boba's backstory from the prequels somewhat. Like maybe we should have more Boba backstory from before Empire.
I want
Give us
Jango's
what happened
backstory
right
with Cad
after.
Bane.
Yeah,
Well, that's fair.
yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we could tell, but I felt like they were just we're not sure we're gonna we got to make a show about this guy, but we don't and knowing a little bit of what happened behind the scenes with production, they got stymied because of COVID. But
that was evident. I mean, you didn't have to know,
right?
Yeah,
but the thing was,
evident.
it was shortened because of that. But then it's also weird. It felt like they just plugged in some Mando season 3 stuff to make it to fill it out a little bit.
Mando season 3. How do we give it to them?
But how much did you love seeing Ahsoka put her hand on R2 and then telling Luke he has so much of his father in him? Come on,
I loved it, but it had nothing to do with Boba Fett.
Right.
But it did because it's all connected.
didn't.
And what I would love to see is when you finally get Boba, Mando, Luke, and Ahsoka in a room together, because Luke does not consider Boba a good guy.
Listen,
but Boba is trying to be a good guy.
Connect every piece of Star Wars.
You don't
know
need
how
to.
big this galaxy is.
But they are connected.
And you know what? I think this is what
they are.
They're all connected by the Force.
I wasn't even going to say that.
You need to understand, Matt. They're all connected.
But the galaxy is so big, you don't have to connect every character. It's okay to play in their own realm.
And that, I think, is a great place to kind of maybe wrap this a little up, because I think that I've gotten tired of the Skywalker saga.
Oh, I am.
I
feel like it's
Skywalker saga is over.
It's overplayed,
done,
and bringing him into the end of Mandalorian season 2 to get Grogu, I was yeah, I get it, but also, do I need so much de-aged Mark Hamill in Boba Fett? This is
no.
This doesn't I love my friend who works on the show, but it's also this. Yeah, more of this is not what we need. But I think that I was just reading Entertainment Weekly or whoever it was, Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair.
That Star Wars is ready to get beyond the Skywalker saga, and it's great. Then do it. Andor.
Show us.
Andor, great. Let's see, but Ahsoka is still technically connected to it.
Andor is too, though.
Yeah,
because it's the start of the rebellion. So Andor and Ahsoka, Kenobi, they're all connected.
So
I think it's
go ahead.
Acolyte.
But with Marvel, they did a great job, even though they told us they weren't canon, but they were canon, and now they're making them canon. It's you look at the Netflix series; those were connected. Nods were made. They called Avengers 2012 the incident. But they did such a great job keeping them separate. So I get what you guys are saying, and I'm all for that. But just having those nods of simple connection, to know that it exists in the same universe.
Yes. Well, that's what I loved about Mandalorian, and when you're talking about I was a ranger of the New Republic or whatever, those sorts of things. Yes, we're connecting it to that. That's fine. Yes, it's in the same universe. We're making the connections. Love that stuff. But I don't need Luke Skywalker to show up.
No.
That was the thing. It's
you can tell us, but don't show us.
Right.
Almost. Sometimes that's better.
You could have left him cloaked the entire time. I didn't even need to see his face. You could have had Mark Hamill do the voice, and de-age the voice a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
We never even see his face. He's just in the cloak the whole time, and Grogu goes with him. Great. We don't need to get de-aged Mark Hamill.
See, I guess as someone who got into it later, I'm finally getting these Leonardo DiCaprio moments that I've never had before. So for
That's
me,
fair.
it's
That's fair.
fun, especially because like Cad Bane showed up when had just finished Clone Wars and had started Rebels, and I was like, as soon as he showed up, because I watch him with my oldest, and she's 18, she has a good appreciation for the storyline, she understands everything, but she didn't watch the cartoons with me, so I'm like, I know him, that's Cad Bane, and so those
She's like,
moments
"All
are
right,
fun
Mom."
for me because when Luke showed up at the end of Mando, I looked at her and I'm like, what color is Luke's lightsaber again? Because it's like, is
Yeah.
that him? Like, am I
Oh.
actually knowing this? Am I right?
Yeah. Well,
So I think it's fun.
it's great. And I mean, I loved Cad Bane showing up. Like, I thought that was great. I mean, if
It wasn't enough.
it wasn't enough, and I don't think he's dead. I think that he's
No, hell no.
he'll come back. But I like how much I love Cad Bane and bounty hunters in general. I've made a character for my own podcast in this sci-fi part of my podcast called Hamdo Bane, who's named after also a combination of my best friend and Cad Bane is.
Ham Bane. I'm picturing Ham from Toy Story.
No, my friend's name is Hamilton, so he's Jason Hamilton. And we always called him Ham, so his name is Hamdo Bane. He does the voice for him, so
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, and send you guys the artwork for him. He looks a lot like Cad Bane, but Cad Bane mixed with a little Doc Holliday. But yeah, I think that what it comes down to in the end is like I mean, we had mentioned how much we like Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
It's adjacent to Star Wars, like Skywalker Saga, but it's totally different characters. And we don't really, we get some Darth Vader in there. We get some Anakin Darth Vader in there, but it's not, it's more through Ben Mendelsohn's character. I can't remember the name of his character at the moment. In that, like his, like sort of like trying to appease Vader, and I think that final moment where it's like just blends into New Hope at the very end is so
it's amazing.
It's so great,
was amazing.
And that's
You're
what you're talking about, Lauren. When you're talking about connection, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Why are those people so afraid in New Hope for that door to open?
Right.
They saw what just happened.
Oh yeah.
To their friends. Like that's why they're all like
they're shaking.
Yeah,
that's awesome. It connects that bridge.
Yeah, and like that is a great addition to the story. That enriches the story, as opposed to things that are just like we're doing
Rey
this to kind
Skywalker.
of Ray. Yes, my name is Skywalker, and it's like really is it? You could just
that was stupid, and then I didn't like that either.
Yeah,
but no, my last rewatch, I finished Rogue One, and I immediately put on A New Hope, and I was like, I did not realize because I had watched them separately before, and I never really put it together. But that is like one long amazing scene.
Yeah, it's just like it's one into it. Like that whole battle is like it's just like it's one long scene.
Yeah,
it really makes the whole movie better. Yeah, you're right. I never even thought of it like that.
It flows.
And like I said, that's why I think the first trilogy works, is because you are dropped into the middle of it in the very beginning. And like Rogue One sort of like, oh, hey, guess what? We're just going to like, and you didn't know that going into Rogue One.
No.
That this is going to end like just seamlessly going into A New Hope. But it's so adjacent. And it's like, that's not really the characters we're even dealing with until the very end. It's like that last moment is not even characters that we've had anything to do with. That's sort of the epilogue in a way. We like the main characters that we've spent all of our time with are already gone. And I think that was another thing that was like that it was willing to kill off characters and leave them dead. As opposed to in many ways like we got to keep these people around because the fans might love this character and we got to use it again in another movie. I think that like the series of things that I'm trying to do here with this like nerd quests is to understand why I love certain nerdy things, and I definitely love Star Wars, and I feel that the reason I love that original trilogy so much is because even with its imperfections, it is such a solid story. and there are great stories to be told in this universe. And I think that the MCU has a similar problem where you can have things that take place in the same universe that don't have to intersect. You don't have to bring it all together. It doesn't have to be Endgame. It doesn't have to be all the time. It just, like, one thing I loved about Moon Knight was that we know it exists in the same universe, but so far it has not had to
collided with anything.
collided with anything. It may eventually. It's possible. Who knows? But it doesn't have to. And I think that is where we go with Star Wars and what can make great stories. And I think Dave Filoni, like you were saying, Lauren, is the caretaker, like Kevin Feige is for Marvel. That you need a caretaker there, someone who can guide this.
A fan.
Yeah, who's a fan of what's going on and loves it and cares for it, but also doesn't fall victim to the toxic nature of fandom, because that's a whole other thing that that it really Star Wars fandom especially,
they're crazy.
They are, and it's related, and it's the other star, the Trek. When I saw somebody when did Star Trek get so woke? And it was
yeah, I've seen those.
1968. I don't know. When
They were the first ones to ever have an interracial kiss ever on TV.
Star Trek is literally about politics.
Right.
Literally, the premise of Star Trek is politics,
Right.
and so is Star Wars.
In a lot of ways.
I hate to break it to people.
All of it.
Well, they're
All
based
of it.
on real, Hitler's speech was Palpatine. They pulled right from history.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff is both of the stars are deeply rooted in politics, and it's unfortunately we need to have somebody who is in charge, who is willing to foster new stories that are not based on existing stories in this universe, and let people create something without the fear of, oh, is it going to be instantly successful and a hit? Because you have to take risks. And I think that that's the thing that was especially lacking in the sequel trilogy, other than why I liked Last Jedi most of those three was it took the most risks. It didn't
that's a fair assessment.
It didn't succeed at them, but it took the most risks of any of those films. It's also why I feel like the prequel trilogy is not as strong as the original. It's because it doesn't take those risks. And also because the special effects are too light. There's no weight to those things. There's no practical stuff, which I thought was
I think
way
it was
better.
a weird
Time.
because it was we had CGI and we had the technology, but it wasn't. It's when you go back and rewatch Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire,
Yes.
you can tell the CGI. So I think that has kind of ruined, even with the original when they edited some of it. A lot of people are just
Why
leave
edit?
it how it was.
Yeah.
Han shot first. Let it
Yes,
go.
exactly.
But
He got too into oh, I'm going to change things and make it the way I wanted it to be. No, it was great. You made it. I said again, don't let George Lucas not have somebody standing behind him going, no, don't. He needs that extra voice in the room.
I did hear
Go ahead.
on the prequels when he was working on them, and somebody would be like, well, I don't think that's going to work, and he wanted it his way. He would say, well, that's what Steven Spielberg wants, and then nobody would argue with him, even though it was what he wanted.
Right. Well, that's because of the Indiana Jones. When they would work on Indiana Jones together, he would be like, oh, that's what Spielberg wants.
Got to give Spielberg.
Got to give Steven Spielberg what he wants. They were working, and that's the thing. Indiana Jones, those movies work because he's got Steven Spielberg in the room telling him, this doesn't work. And then we get Nuke in the Fridge, and
Lucas did want and try to get Spielberg, but Spielberg told Lucas that this was his baby, and he backed off.
Right.
So he did try to get Spielberg. In his defense, he tried.
But it's not a Spielberg movie. It's not.
No,
Spielberg was not the person to be directing those movies. and neither was George Lucas. Like, I think that George Lucas could have been like the creative, producing it and like
Like,
working
hey,
on
this
special
is my
effects.
vision.
And
Go from here.
here's my story. Here's the story I want to tell. Let's get like 3 really good screenwriters in here to write dialogue because he cannot write dialogue
No.
at
Well,
all.
not at all.
His
like,
dialogue is terrible.
oh man, he wouldn't let the actors break from his script either,
Yeah.
which was another fault of his. So
And you got Samuel L. Jackson. Let Samuel L. Jackson be Samuel L. Jackson. Throw a swear word into a Star Wars movie for once.
the Force, motherfucker.
Exactly. When he is like fighting with Palpatine there, like I wanted a motherfucker to come out of like
The Sith is over, motherfucker.
Yeah. Like
Like dokes over here.
yeah. He just like it's just like something there. There needed to be more
Something
in there. And
More something.
some more intense.
More.
More. And and I think that like you were saying, that the effects were at a weird stage in that
they
point
were.
in history.
They were early stages.
And I think that the problem there is like he was going 100% away from practical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to do everything CGI because he was just like, I can just make up whatever I want in the digital world.
He was just excited about the new technology.
Right. But it's also like not seeing it as like
how Steven Spielberg did with Jurassic Park, where it was a good combination. He
Right.
used what he
Mixed
knew he could,
things.
and that movie aged phenomenally well.
yes, it's still good. Like it's
Yeah.
we still
Oh,
It
yeah.
still holds up.
it
Yeah.
still
Those
really
effects
holds up.
hold
You
up
look at it and go
today.
like, oh, okay, this like we're gonna mix things together, and we're gonna have
Right.
practical
Puppets.
stuff, and I think that's why Rogue One is so good. I mean, the great things about the sequel trilogy are visually, for the most part, are pretty good. Like
Yeah.
I think-
I will definitely agree
the
with that.
sequels
Yes.
are very visually beautiful.
Yes.
I will.
think
I will
that's-
say that.
Even Last Jedi, the red salt and everything. I mean, that's
yeah, I mean,
It's
they did
salt.
a gorgeous job.
it was visually beautiful in a lot of ways,
It
Mhm.
was.
and story wise.
But when you spend a 2-day space chase on the same ship, like in this galaxy that's so big, like
yeah,
come
it's
on.
but and also the use of one thing I loved, use of hyperspace ramming. Like,
Okay.
I liked that. I thought that was
I hate that.
okay. Well,
Oh, you didn't like that when Laura Dern did the
No. Okay.
sacrificing herself?
If that was
I thought
the
that was pretty
case,
badass.
I thought it
if
was
that
good.
was the case,
People would have been doing it all the
droids
time.
could have done exactly. We could have sent one person on a suicide mission
And
to
a droid.
suicide their way through the Death Star. We could have sent the droid army with
fair
a
enough.
suicide. Like, come
Fair
on.
But didn't
enough.
we talk about how a suicide
No.
mission would almost be more beneficial in some of these scenarios? Like we even compared it
Yes,
to
it
Independence
would
Day in our
have,
last episode.
which is why they would have done it in these previous Star Wars movies. You would have sent one person to hyperdrive.
Well,
a
maybe you
starship
didn't
through the
have
Death
somebody
Star.
that was badass enough and ready to
Well, I mean, okay,
sacrifice themselves.
You
No,
had
I'm
so
sure-
many
I'm
people
sure
in
there
that
were people-
rebellion.
That was Porkins.
But they were young.
Porkins would have done it.
No.
Porkins would have
No.
like
Somebody in that
Hyperdrive
rebellion
of-
would have been like, "Hey, I'm gonna
I'll-
hyperdrive right through this Death Star, and we're gonna win this war today."
and my.
But a lot of
que-
the rep.
Go
What's
ahead.
your question?
My question?
I was just gonna
is-
say.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say a lot of the rebels in the original trilogy are very young, though. They're not ready to lay
No.
their lives down for the cause.
No,
That's all
yes,
I was
they
gonna say.
are.
Okay.
No,
Yes, they
not, no. You've got like you're talking about the people who are like flying the ships. They're old people.
Admiral
They're-
Akbar would have
Akbar would
blown
have
his shit through that Death Star.
I'm sure he would have. And I think that the thing there is like my curiosity is that you're absolutely right, Matt. I hadn't thought about it like you're creating a completely a new
It's
form
just like
of weapon.
tossing lightsabers through the Force. We would have done that too.
They do that. all
That
the
was a
time.
bit silly.
They did that all the time. They did that in Return of the Jedi. Like there's like, and actually Empire Strikes Back. Vader throws his lightsaber several times.
Okay, but he doesn't like pass it over his back and then he pulls out this lightsaber through the force.
Okay, fine.
If you had two people that had been training for, like, Rey was new to the Force, so it's like I would have bought it if it was like Kylo and Luke were on the same team. They were
Yeah.
able to pull some stuff like that. That would have made more sense. But Rey was just too young, and I
Too new
mean,
to
there's
it.
only
I agree.
so much raw talent you can feed off of.
I
And
feel-
yeah,
but-
so
but
that
she
was
had-
a bit much.
She had Palpatine talent. It's
She did
genetic-
have the lightning.
this genetic,
What is it?
genetic
The
Palpatine
Thor
talent.
sparkle.
Thor
Yeah.
sparkle. Her eyes.
Well,
didn't have-
what does he call him in Sakaar? What is he, the sparkles? Isn't that what he calls Thor when he does the lightning in his hands? Jeff Goldblum.
Ooh, sparkle hands.
Does he
like
say
that.
something like that?
Something like that.
He's like,
Sparkle
ooh,
fingers.
sparkles.
Sparkle
or something.
fingers. Yeah, because he's like sitting in the chair when he's locked in the chair.
Right.
He's like, ooh, and it's like spark. It's because sparks are actually coming out.
Something.
Yeah.
Right.
Gosh.
It's gonna drive me nuts. I'm gonna have to rewatch it. But yeah, it's. I think what you're talking about there is like that is the case of we want to do something cool that isn't actually serving the story. And I used to be a fight choreographer. I used to teach sword fighting and choreographing fights. And the first rule is the fight has to serve the story.
Yeah.
And it tells a story. And my fight master he actually did the fight choreography. Have you ever seen The Mission with Robert De Niro?
Yeah.
He did all the
Oh
fight
wow.
choreography for The Mission. He was a classically trained fencer, and all of these things that he would teach us were like the fight has to
I mean, that makes
extend,
that,
it's
that
an
makes
extension
sense.
of the story. And we would always talk about like movies like when you talk about fights in a movie, the first one that I always think of is there's two actually, the Three Musketeers movies with Michael York, Christopher Lee, Richard Chamberlain.
Robin? Oh.
No. The Three Musketeers, the 1968 Three Musketeers with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
like
thinking of the newer
old-
one.
Old
Okay.
school.
Yes, Christopher Lee plays Rochefort, and Charlton Heston is Cardinal Richelieu. It has got some of the most amazing fights in it, and they use very heavy swords, and they're all dressed in these very heavy clothes that and it just like it that really informs the fighting. And the other one is The Duelists, which is with Harvey Keitel and David Carradine, and it's about like two guys who fight like 5 different duels with each other
Oh yeah.
over
I've heard
like
of this.
20 or 30 years, and each fight tells a different story. And I think that what they were trying to do in that scene in The Last Jedi was create just a beautiful, incredible fight, but the fight does not serve the overall story that goes in there, because like you
Right.
said, it doesn't make sense. She is not in the place to have that fight.
It's-
She's too
no.
she's Luke in like
She literally just knew what a lightsaber was
Right.
like yesterday.
yeah, exactly. She
Mhm.
is Luke
'Cause this
in
picks up right
New
after.
Hope. Like
Mhm.
she's or just after New Hope. Like she's like knows nothing, but yet you've like
right.
put her. You've like suddenly made her like this other character. And that's not to say like her character isn't great, and you can't do. She isn't eventually going to do something wonderful. Again, I think it's a storytelling problem, and where they tell the story and the characters they choose to use. And they could have done different things with Ben Solo, Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah.
I would have loved to see like Knights of Ren, like a whole different thing happen there, as
They've
opposed
been
to
talking about the Knights of Ren for how many movies?
yeah, I know. And it's like, well, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Like that should have been like I feel like you could have taken these characters, and you don't have to maybe necessarily do such a cosmic scale in the first movie. And then you sort of like build to things in like the last movie, like then things are crazy and like Thrawn comes in and we've got to then everything becomes a big deal. Like you didn't have to make everything huge from the very first film. It could have been the building up of like, oh, there have been all of these things that have been happening, and the new order, First Order is becoming a problem, and we deal with it on a smaller scale. And I think that that's what's so great. Okay, now I'm really actually gonna try to wrap this up into a nice bow. I think what's so great about the Filoni storytelling is that it doesn't like, it takes place in the same world, but it doesn't have to focus on the same stories all the time.
Yeah.
What's so great about like Clone Wars and Rebels, you're dealing with different things that are all taking place in the same world. You can have that Darth Maul like storyline. You can have your Mandalorian storylines, and
Yeah.
they take place. It's in the world. It is consistent with the world that you're given, but it doesn't have to be about this same storyline. We can have. It doesn't have to serve everything. Doesn't have to serve the Skywalker storyline, and that's what I think. While I love like they said, my love is for those original three, but I didn't feel that I needed to have everything since then really revolve around those characters.
Yeah.
And I
They're
probably
just part of the universe.
yeah, and I would have been happy with them staying where they were. Like you could have nods to them, but I didn't need to have them all come back. I didn't need to have them all. I didn't need to get. I mean, honestly, with the
I'm
prequels,
like,
yeah,
Right.
I'm Ray Palpatine Skywalker. Hyphenate. I think that you could have even done the prequels. Wouldn't have had to been like so focused on. They could have been on Anakin. Anakin could have even been a background character. Like
there's how many Jedi at that
Yeah.
period in the prequels?
you could have talked about. It could have been other people, and then it just like that is happening somewhere else, and they sort of intersect, and then it happens, and you're like, oh my god, that's what's going on. Oh
Right.
shit, like this is crazy. Like you didn't have to tell the story in that way, but that's how George Lucas does things. But all right,
Well, I
No,
will
I
say,
agree with all of that. I do.
yeah, I think my final comments on for one, the Grandmaster called Thor God of Sparkles. I just Googled it.
Oh, okay.
But I think that the issues with the sequel trilogy, which was my least favorite trilogy as well, is for one, these movies came out after the MCU had taken off, and I think they fell victim to one of the same things that DC has fallen victim to, where they try to have this combination of comedy versus action storyline. Like Luke throwing the lightsaber, was that supposed to be comedic? Because it fell flat. And I
Yeah.
feel like that they sacrificed some stuff for comedy that I don't think worked out well. And I also think that they don't look at the grand scheme of things, again, like DC, where they don't say, okay, we're going to be patient with this because it's going to work better later. They did whatever they needed to do to make that
Right.
specific movie work at that specific time.
I completely agree with you in that
Yep.
sense that they were just like there was no plan. Like I think that DC, that is exactly DC's problem is like there's no plan, and we're just going to try to throw as much as we can at this and try to make it a thing that people are going to go, oh, this is amazing.
Right.
And I
We
think
need another Batman, Superman, Skywalker. Just bring them
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that Luke moment, like, I think what I actually enjoy the most about Last Jedi is the Luke stuff, like, and him just being like, I'm just an old man, and I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm fucking tired of all of this stuff. Like, I don't want to have to deal with it. Oh, you think you're going to be the one who's going to change the universe? I thought I was going to be the one who's going to change the universe. And guess what happened? A bunch of kids died because of me. Whatever. Like, just like my dad. My dad killed him. I didn't kill him. But, like, it's just like, he's just kind of like, whatever. And I think that you're right. That moment could have been both comedic, but also, like, telling. But they just kind of played it like, oh, we're going to do this for funny. Yoda's response, like, oh, books are gone. Oh, page turners, were they? Like that. That was funny, but it was also like you could see the seed of like, yes, it's not about the books, it's about something else.
Yeah.
And what made me like this again, I think brings me back to what I really love about Rogue One is its characters and their responses to things that are part of this universe that are totally different from what you get in Star Wars Skywalker Star Wars. Donnie Yen's character in Rogue One. I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
He believes so strongly.
He believes so strongly, and it's not about the books. It's not about being a Jedi. It's just his belief that the Force will guide him, and that is such a that informs all of those people in the original trilogy who say, "May the Force be with you."
Mm-hmm.
They're not Jedi.
Right, but you can still believe in the Force even if you're not Jedi.
It's just a belief that the Force has an effect on your life. Instead of making it always about the Jedi, that there's something that's guiding us out there.
I like to see the stories that these people who believe in the Force, but they don't use the Force. They believe in it. So, there's everyday people out there. The galaxy is so large.
Yeah,
I love those stories.
I hope that that's what we see more of.
Yeah,
I hope this Taika Waititi,
we still don't know what it is.
I love him, and I think that's why they're putting their chips, that's why they've pushed forward on Taika, is because he's a hot hand, and I love him, but sometimes I'm like, are we just going with him because he's popular right now, and he's and he has yet to do wrong, but we'll see. It could happen. I mean, but I hope that he goes in a completely different, whatever it is. I hope that he just goes in a completely different direction, and it's just we're in the same universe. People talk about the Force.
Well, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him. I mean, look at Ragnarok compared to Dark World.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you just look at what we do in the shadows. Take that genre.
I've only seen the first few episodes.
The movie.
Watch the movie.
Watch the movie. The movie is fantastic, and the show is just as good as the movie.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I had a friend that I was like, okay, I'll watch What We Do in the Shadows if you watch Supernatural, and she didn't even finish the first episode. So it's I'm refusing to finish What We Do in the Shadows because she's being a pain in the ass.
You gotta watch it.
We gotta watch
so
it.
Funny.
It is. The movie is so good.
The movie.
Y'all need to tell Jess to watch Supernatural.
The movie is incredible. It's really funny, but the TV show is also it's perfect. It's a perfect continuation.
I did watch the first few, and I get what they're going for. I didn't fall in love with it right away, though.
Yeah, I think you need to see the movie if you haven't. If you haven't.
Yeah, I think the movie's gonna
help you, inform you. So, thank you guys for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks
for having us. If you ever need me to come on to just talk about stuff,
we'd love to.
Let me know. Where can people find you guys? On the interwebs. Find the Hops Geek News. Hops Geek
We're both
News?
Pointing at each other.
Pointing at each other like Spider-Man.
You got it. You got it.
Go ahead. Go to Twitter, Hops Geek News. Go to Instagram, Hops Geek News on there. Lauren runs the Instagram. I run the Twitter. But all of our cumulative, if that's how you say that word.
Cumulative?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Cumulative work can be found at hopsnews.beer. That's where you will find our articles that we both write. That's where you'll find the links to all of our shows. That's where you'll find the links to our merch. And then tiktok.com/hopsgeeknews.
Yeah, Lauren does more of the TikToks.
I've been slacking.
I don't know how that happened. It was his idea to start one because he's younger than I am.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm older than both of you. I suspect. I'm still doing the TikToks because there's nobody else.
I've slacked.
There's no one else to do it.
I will get back on that horse. I promise you. I will.
Well, I have my daughter will show me how to do stuff.
She's showing off her twirling skills.
Yes, my guard skills have been put to use. So anybody, if you were ever like a flag flipper, rifle twirler or whatnot, and you like Star Wars, the plastic lightsabers that they sell at Disney spin beautifully, and they're so much fun to spin.
My wife is a former guard twirler.
Nice.
She needs a lightsaber then.
I have my lightsaber. She needs to get one for herself.
Yeah, I want to get a nice, like one of the expensive ones, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about twirl. Let's just say I'm not going to throw that one in the air.
Don't twirl that one. It doesn't. The weight doesn't.
I'll twirl it a little, but I won't throw it into the air.
thanks for joining us on this nerd quest. And many thanks to Matt and Lauren from Hops Geek News for coming over and discussing Star Wars with me. You should go over and check out their podcast. If you like geeky stuff, if you like beer, if you like both, it's a good podcast for you to listen to. Until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay nerdy.